It would be great to have someone who could do our work for us, right? Someone to prevent us from making mistakes. Someone to assist with our routine professionally and allow us to devote our time to communicating with our closest people. If only we could get results without wasting our time for nothing. Unfortunately, it's impossible in real life. But wait, Light Forex Social Trading. Spend your time doing what really matters to you.
Good morning guys, 23rd of September 2019, 8 AM CET, 7 AM London, Piotr here, meaning this is a pre-London live market coverage only here in Light Forex Global YouTube channel. Let's start with quick risk warning guys, please bear in mind trading effects on margin carries a high level of risk, may not be suitable for investors who can sustain a loss of some or all initial investments, so please do not invest the money you cannot afford to see education, gain experience before risking real money. However, past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Okay. Just reminder, because of we have PMI day in Europe and in US as well, but especially in Europe, you are more than welcome to join me this morning. We are going to cover that event live here on Light Forex Global YouTube channel. We started 9:15 AM CET, 8:15 AM London, if I'm not mistaken. If we are talking about the calendar, let's have a look what we have. From the calendar perspective, as I mentioned, it's a PMI day in Europe, and to be frank with you, nothing else worth to mention during the London session. Then New York session at 3 PM CET, 2 PM London. We do have ECB President Draghi speaks. Then 3:45 PM CET. Flash manufacturing PMI, US flash services PMI, and then we have two FOMC members. 3:50 PM CET is a Williams, but it might be worth to try to focus on Bullard at 7 PM CET, so during the second half of the second part of the New York session. Especially it might be worth from the dollar perspective. When we are talking about the dollar perspective, let's hi Kainat, how are you doing? Hopefully everything is okay on your side. So when we are talking about the dollar, so let's start straight with euro dollar. There you go. Let's go with weekly chart. There is no doubt from the weekly chart perspective what's the direction, but I'm going to focus right now on the few latest days, especially what happened 4 weeks ago. I'm talking about this big range to the downside. All right, and the top of that range never been tested, right? So that's quite interesting. And now one can ask, Piotr, why it's so interesting for you? It's because of two lower shadows being created 2 and 3 weeks ago. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. That one as well as that one, right? So now taking into the consideration previous week price action, I know we stayed weak for the whole week, right? That's what we discussed as far as I remember on Friday as well. Anyway, there is a little bit of the lower shadow, and trying to take all of this into the consideration, right? I'm not gonna be surprised that market is going to try to take the advantage of that tiny lower shadow from the previous week. So as long as last week low is not taken out, we might see attempt to go higher. Now there is a based on the previous week price action, we might talk about this swing high, possible swing high here, right, based on the high seen 2 weeks ago. Okay, but you know, I think it might be at some point, if you know, if we are going to see plenty of dovish comments, and we do have dovish Fed members this week, we might see attempt to spike higher. Now let's have a look. Let's try to take the conspiracy theory, let's put it to work, and let's try to make some measures. If I'm not mistaken, we might try to hit that stops based on that range which has been created 4 weeks ago, month ago, all right, as you can see. So in that case, we are talking about the levels towards 1150, 1170, and that could be the case, guys. That could be the case. Usually when you have just a little bit of learning here, when you have this type of the range, big range, like what we have here, right? Sometimes market is taking the advantage of the top of that range. In that way. And 3 should be enough, but let me make it in our example some kind of 4. And then again, right? Yeah, something like this. Yes, 112 towards 112. I'm talking here on a weekly chart, right? So we are talking on a little bit longer, higher time frame, right? And probably, if you are going to take into the consideration what we drew here, then suddenly it's going to be like, you know, oh, I've seen that many times, right? So yeah, from higher time frame perspective, let's be patient, especially that here on the weekly chart, as you know, we are still inside this possible demand here. I truly believe that this post-French election gap is a target, and at least this post-French election gap is a target, and at least at some point in the future we are going to close that gap. But anyway, from higher time frame perspective, that's how I see the euro dollar. So based on what we've seen previous week, as long as previous week low is not taken out, this type of the action could be in place. We are going to switch to the lower time frame. In regards to the Bitcoin, I've been thinking to do the stream over the weekend, but really Bitcoin was very stable around 10k, waiting for this backed launch, and we launched backed, and we are still around 10k. I'm going to make this live stream in relation to the crypto probably today, based on this backed launch. So please subscribe to our channel, and you are going to be informed. It's not scheduled yet. You know, I've been waiting for some kind of the fireworks. Didn't happen yet, right? So I will for sure I will make the stream in relation to the crypto. So please, no worries. Let's switch lower here on the euro dollar to the daily chart, and here the bears got their argument. Piotr, come on, we have those two upper shadows, Thursday and Friday, but we have to get back to our conversation from the previous week. Just a little bit of the coffee. We have to get back into our conversation from the previous week, especially when we are talking about the Friday. Of course, congratulations to all of you. Okay, Mayor, I'm sorry. All right. I didn't know. Thank you. We have to get back into our conversation we held last Friday, right? So congratulations to all of you who took the advantage and was able to grab short on euro dollar. So what was all about the Friday, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once we moved to the downside, market was never able to get back above the yearly week high, right? So there were buyers, again rejection, again buyers on Thursday rejected. So I've been trying to explain you guys that there is a big possibility that we are going to see lower levels on Friday during the US session, and I've been explaining the reasoning, right? Simply the longs, some longs were forced to square ahead of the weekend to get out of the risk ahead of the weekend. So it was, this time it was that easy, right? It's not always that easy, but this time it was that easy on euro dollar. So it might be the Friday price action, it might showing false picture here. So that's why I would like to be very, very careful, as long as last week low is in place, right? As long as we are not taking out previous week low, what we discussed earlier, we might see higher prices, and we might see this type of the stop count of the previous week high this week, for example, right? So it might be the prices might go higher. At least that's how I see the things. Now, trying to talk about some certain levels here. It's just 1 second. Trying to talk about some certain levels on euro dollar. From the weekly chart, it's higher towards 1170.12, and it's gonna be it's very good visible here from the daily chart perspective, right? Maybe not that way. Let's do this the different way. That's what I'm talking about. This zone here, right? That's the possible target, and in that case, it's between 1153 and 1164, so towards 1170. That's what we discussed. Maybe market will try to find some liquidity, trying to hit that stops from the 26th of August high. So that could be the case, especially if we are going to take into the consideration what we do lately from the intraday perspective, right? Look, if we are going to take previous week low into the consideration, all right, That's what we are going to get. So I'm going to be very, very patient. I might even try to, in case of move a little bit lower towards 110 again, I might think about tiny intraday long, but that has to be confirmed by price action. So you know, maybe during our next meeting, when we are going to cover EU PMI, right, within next hour, it might happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It might happen. If not, there is another chance tomorrow. Am I right? Tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow is a German IFO business climate, so there is another chance that market will try to push price of euro dollar a little bit lower. And during the US session today we have Draghi, so be very careful, right? So let's switch even lower. Let's switch to the intraday chart. Let's remove the lines. Let's switch lower. So let's have a look what we have here. And look, guys, the green dotted line is a previous Monday low. Green dotted line is a previous Monday low, right? We had attempt to break through the Monday low previous week. So there is a very nice possible setup of over, so call it over under, with the possibility to look for liquidity below the Friday low, right? So a little bit below 110, that's where I'm going to look for opportunity to try to go long with very, very tiny stop and very, very low exposure. All right. From the euro dollar perspective, that's how I see the things on euro dollar for now. From the selling perspective, when we are talking about the intraday trading, of course, we know based on the previous week price action where the liquidity is, right? So I wouldn't be in rush, at least I wouldn't be in rush right now, right here, to try to sell euro dollar yet. Let's have a look what's at current level. Let's have a look what's going to happen during the first few hours of the first European session of this week, right? So that's the euro dollar for now. Now let's talk about the pound. We did a great job previous week, right, with this rejection on the cable, so congratulations. So we were short cable almost right at the top. Now there is a chance we are going to have a possibility to try to make similar approach this week. The first possible supply is based on the possible swing high creation here on the weekly, but the distance is too high in my opinion, right? So I would rather switch to the lower time frame from the short side perspective. I'm going to explain in a second. Give me a few moments. Just to show you where the buyers are. I think that previous week low might be under pressure. We might see attempt to see lower levels. So 24 is and stops below 24. That's in my opinion the target from this weekly chart perspective. It looks a little bit different from the daily chart perspective on the cable here. It looks a little bit different as we can narrow the distance between the entry and the stop from the selling perspective, right? So what I'm talking about, same as on the weekly, looking for a swing high creation. So from that perspective, that's our possible supply between 25.60 and 26. Right, and I'm not gonna be surprised I'm not gonna be surprised if market will look for some stops, all right, and we'll try to hit stops above previous week high. So there are two possibilities, and we have to be ready for this, right? From the buying perspective, it looks a little bit different than what we discuss on the weekly, because 2440 might be the first line of the defense here, right? So the whole zone between 2440, 24, that's where I do expect some buyers, and some kind of the manipulation might take place there, right? Daily close below 24, especially two consecutive daily close below 24, and we might get back into the falling trend, right? So that's how I see the cable from the daily chart perspective. Let's switch lower. Let's switch to the intraday chart, and here, if you remember, that's our channel. We hit the target based on that combination of the bottom of the channel and previous week open, if you remember. So we hit that target of the previous week. So we had those stop hunt based on the channel from the intraday perspective to the upside, rejection, sell short. Now it's worth to monitor what might happen here, because there is a possibility, as we discussed, between 2440 and 24 from weekly and daily chart, we have the confirmation. I mean, maybe not the confirmation, it's better visible here on the intraday chart. We have this possible demand zone over here, right? So there is a nice liquidity pool based on what we've seen here and here, right? So if we had a stop hunt to the upside and we turn around, so to trying to turn around to the upside, I think we have to have stop hunt to the downside, right? I might be wrong. I don't have a crystal ball, but that's how I see the thing. That's how I see the thing here on the cable. So the sellers higher towards 25.60, even 26. Buyers down towards 24.40, 24. At least that's how I see the things for now on the cable. Now dollar yen, the Goldman is bearish here, saying that there is a very strong buy signal on the yen, even stronger than on the gold. But we know Goldman sometimes needs the other side. So, you know, I would be very careful trying to blindly follow what Goldman is saying. Okay. I missed one thing, that we didn't hit what we hit previous week. The previous week high was 108.48, right? And how to say it properly? You know, I'm not comfortable with this. The target was something closer to 108.80, all right? So in that case, I do understand that we might try to work with the previous week high to at least hit some stops, right? To at least hit some stops, because on the weekly charts, that's what I've been waiting for that zone over here, right? So there is a space. So in that case, you know, we might have the third upper shadow. Also, on the other hand, I do understand that the whole move down from here and the break through this consolidation suggests that that was the whole possible supply. So 2 weeks ago we closed inside, that's the supply. Let me show you what I'm talking about. That was the supply, right? Sorry, that was the supply on the weekly. So what happened, what bears did, they didn't allow 2 consecutive weekly close inside this supply. So as you can see, previous week close was below that supply. That's positive. That's so, you know, it's a, from the bear's perspective, we have two ways right now to look at that weekly chart, right? Either we are going to take out immediately I mean, either we are going to take out, so even 3 ways, sorry. We are going to take out the previous week low and continue to the downside. The second thing is that we might try to create swing high over here. And the third thing is that we might take out the previous week high, hit 108.80, plenty of possibilities. So it's gonna be the challenge to try to read the dollar yen this week. On the other hand, when we are talking about the demand in that case, what I would like to see, that would be the attempt to take the previous week low and to close the gap, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's the gap. All right, to hit 107.20. And if you remember, previous week we were looking to buy between 107.50, 107.25. Okay. So that could be the case from this higher time frame perspective. So let's switch lower. Let's switch to the daily chart. As you can see, previous week low, nice liquidity pool. All right, and if we are going to hit that level, 107. 25 as discussed, the whole green zone down towards 106.85, that might be the buying zone. All right, and again the buying zone, the possible buying zone, if you see like me, that was some kind of the consolidation, right? So here is the zone from where we took out the high of that consolidation. It's also the 50% of that zone. So as you can see, it's going to be big challenge to try to trade and 50%, right? So right here, as you can see, it's gonna be a big challenge to try to trade dollar yen this week. I do like challenges, so I'm going to observe and monitor the dollar yen, of course. Now, before we finish, gold, very interesting. What is going on right now? We got back above 1,500 because of this, risk of sentiment towards end of the Friday session. But it was mostly because of this China canceled the meeting in Montana. But as you've seen, we spiked up at the beginning of this week based on the explanation from the China side that, you know, they were trying to avoid the media circus. So, well, you know, also the Japan market was closed, lower liquidity, so it was easier to spike with risk on. But anyway, let's get back to gold and where we are. If you remember, from the weekly chart perspective, there is a huge supply, and we reacted, right? We reacted in that zone. All right, we reacted. Now, we are right now trying to hold what was supposed to work previously as supply, right here. And as you can see, for 2 weeks in a row we tested that one, and that was some kind of the rejection. So right now, taking into the consideration the previous week low, 2 weeks ago low, we know where there is a liquidity pool, right below 1480. Okay, so we have two upper shadows, we have a lower shadow, and the fight is going on in between 1480 and 1560. Now let's switch to the daily chart. As you can see, we have on the daily chart, we are trying to put some kind of the boxes as a consolidation periods. So let's remove few things here. Let's remove those boxes. Let's work with some zones. All right, so the nearest possible supply is between 25 and 35 on gold, especially when we are going to take into the consideration the 4th of September low, 33, 34, let's call it 34, it was not tested. So as you can see right here, right now. So that's where I do expect some sellers trying to take the advantage of that untested level. All right, and depends on what is going to happen from the risk perspective, right? There is a repo scheduled by Fed again. All right, so that might be treated by the market as a positive approach, right? Oh, we are getting the liquidity, but come on, meaning that there is a shortage, big shortage, and there is no liquidity on the market, so that could be a little bit scary. So if you think that everything is going to turn out and gonna be positive, meaning that the risk is going to be on, so probably in that case the gold might be a little bit weaker. So in between this low and the supply from the weekly, so between 35 and 65 from the higher time frame perspective, that's the possible supply. All right, and the possible demand, I think, one second, let's switch back to the weekly. For me to, I have to check something. All right. I think that if you are a buyer, then you want to wait for untested level, especially right here, right now. You may try to imagine yourself the possible head and shoulders on the daily, which may or may not work, right? But if that's the case and we are going to break, so that's possible levels of demand, right? In between 1445 and 1415. So that's how I see the gold right now. There was a quite good hype. Oh yeah, gold is going to be higher, only to the moon. Yeah, let's push it higher. So some late buyers have to be tempered here, and the sellers have to be invited to the market. So that's how I see the things on the gold. I would be very, very careful. All right, unless we are going to create something looks like the megaphone formation on the right shoulder, that might tell us that we are going to break to the upside, and then we are going to break to the upside strongly, and the possible target would be something around 1630. All right, so guys, we went through 3 majors and gold. That's it this morning. Don't forget, within the next 40 minutes, we are going to meet again. We are going to cover EU PMI. So we are going to spend another 45 minutes together. You're more than welcome to join me, and don't be trapped during the day. So see you around. Have a good one, guys.